Hey guys, I wanted to make this little video for you for those that couldn't make the Zoom meeting and everything, and I understand how it goes and stuff, and we're trying to work through all this, so hopefully it's going to be beneficial for you. But I wanted to go over a couple of things that we talked about as well. And again, all this I'm putting on your Finish Strong site under Unit 6, okay, and then we'll move to Unit 7, but I'll let you know when that is. First thing I want you to notice is up here on your key concepts. Now, up here on the screen, you have Key Concept 6, and and it goes all through there, 6.1, 2, and 3. Now, those are on Period 6, but when you pull up the link, it's going to pull up all of them, and you just have to scroll down to your key concepts for Period 6. These are the ones that you're responsible for, okay? And so I want you to notice this just as an example, like under 6.1 and what we'll go over the PowerPoint today. It's really about the growth of big business, technology changing, different things are going to impact society with those technologies. And I want you to look here with A and B, just A and B examples. A says following the Civil War, government subsidies for transportation and communication systems helped open new markets in North America. The other thing I'm putting on there is this document right here, okay? Now, in this document, this is also the key concepts, but under this one, there are examples that go under A. So if you had a question about the growth of big business after the Civil War and how it impacted America from 1865 to 1898 or whatever, these are things that you would put in your paper when you talk about the good and the bad. Under B, for instance, talks about technology changes and people. These are things that you need to know. So under A, you've got federal and state loans for transcontinental railroads. This is a way that the government subsidized. So if you're explaining how the government subsidized, they would give these like really cheap loans and other things to railroad companies to build the transcontinental railroad. But there was also bad that came with that because you had scandals. Credit Mobile, or Mobile. It was a company, and basically Congress people were getting kickbacks for agreeing to provide certain companies with building of rights for the Continental Railroad. Okay? Same thing under B right here. You got to make sure that when you look at these topics under your key concepts, that you have enough examples that you can pull from. Now, these are not all the examples, the only examples that you could put down. But if you're writing about, the growing markets and who made a difference, how they made a difference, you're going to probably talk about oil. You'll talk about steel with Andrew Carnegie, oil with Rockefeller, things of that nature. So I put this on there too so you can refer back to it. Now, with that said, before I get into the little PowerPoint, I want to talk to you about the AP exam. Okay. Right now, again, the College Board is, I guess they're just trying to get things together as quickly as they can. And we're doing the AP exam sometime in May, I believe, and they're going to change a couple of the dates and stuff of that nature, which they'll let us know more about, I think, next week, okay? Somewhere around April 3rd. And so, with that said, the only things I know for sure right now, and again, they may change this, I don't know, is that the AP exam will be 45 minutes, and it's going to be all writing. There's not going to be multiple choice on the AP exam. So my thinking is you're probably going to have a long essay, either that or 2 or 3 short answers in that 45-minute time. So you're probably going to get a big topic, whether it's about World War I, World War II, the Civil War, and the impact of events or people during that time. And so you got to know those type of people, those type of events, actions that you can pull into your paper, okay? All right, but as I know more, I'll give you more. So let's take a look at this right here. And I want to go over this today, and these are a couple things that we touched on when we met today, okay? And just take a look at this right here, okay? So when you look at this, and you got Rockefeller and Carnegie. Rockefeller and Carnegie, and the reason those two guys come up pretty much all the time is that they were pretty much the two richest people in the world. Rockefeller made his money through oil, Carnegie through steel, and they kind of created monopolies. which later in the 1900s our government would work hard about breaking up monopolies, especially Standard Oil, which Rockefeller had. But when you look at this, you have different things that came about. Because of the railroads, all right, there became this huge need for steel rails, iron locomotives, and oil. Okay? Now let's take a look. The steel industry becomes the biggest customer, okay, of the railroad industry, okay? And there's Andrew Carnegie himself. Now, Andrew Carnegie, he is a very interesting guy. He really made a ton of money, but later in his life, especially as things became known as the progressive era, where there was a push in society to make things better for the worker and the common man, Andrew Carnegie wrote something called The Gospel of Wealth. And in that, he's talking about the responsibility of wealthy people to make a difference in society. And matter of fact, near the end of his life, and when he died, he donated most of his money to things like public libraries, schools, universities, and didn't leave his family a lot. He wanted his family to work as he did to earn their money. Whereas Rockefeller, even today, the Rockefellers are a very wealthy family, where the Carnegies aren't so much. Okay, but that's where he donated most of his money. Okay. All right, so what do we have here? After the Civil War, we had this boom where you have American business leaders that are pretty much controlling things. We have some weak presidents come along, presidents that aren't getting a lot done. They're really being controlled by what business wants in the country. And to that extent, a lot of people kind of wanted that. A lot of people wanted jobs. And so business was kind of, the business leaders was kind of let go to kind of do what they wanted. And in turn, you have workers that are punished for things. You have workers that are having to work 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, no breaks. I mean, if you hurt yourself, it's like if you can't heal it, or if you cut your finger off and you can't get that thing together or healed back up or patched back up, I should say, and you got to take a day off, well, they'll just fire you. There was no worker compensation. There was nothing of that nature. And so what came out of that after a number of years, because people started saying, gosh, this is awful. We thought moving to the cities and working at a factory would be so much better than working on farms. There's these things called labor unions that started up, and to protect the workers' rights. Even today, if you have a job and you have to take a 15-minute break, or a lunch break, depending on how long you work, those are policies put in place way back because of the efforts at this time. The labor unions wanted to protect the workers, get an 8-hour workday, disability pay, vacation time, sickness, those kind of things. And so that's what kind of came out of it. Remember, one thing always leads to something else. And many times it's more than one thing, good and bad. Okay? All right. So let's skip over that. All right, there's Rockefeller. Now, and we'll see a picture of him as well. One thing about Rockefeller, he made his money from oil, and his company was called Standard Oil, which was, at this time, at one point in his life, John D. Rockefeller controlled 90% of all the oil industry in the United States. 90%. And that is a huge monopoly. Matter of fact, in the early 1900s, the government, during the height of the progressive era and where people are wanting to make changes in society, the government went after him and broke up Standard Oil, saying you can't have a monopoly. And so a lot of gas companies that you've probably heard of, and I want to get the names right that came out, I think Mobil, Amoco, and many other oil companies came out of this breakup. So you're still owned by this one big thing, but you're your separate company. And John D. Rockefeller actually made more money after the breakup than he did beforehand. And he wasn't happy about it, though. And he just said, look, why are you coming after the business leaders when we're the ones that provide the jobs and everything? And you have that same kind of argument today. Okay? All right, and so there's Standard Oil. Yes, There's picture Standard Oil, and there's John D. Rockefeller. Okay, there's John D. Rockefeller. Now, you've also got to know these inventions right here, guys. And this is kind of what we got to today. But like I said, this PowerPoint, these slides are on your the period 6 spot on your Finish Strong side. Okay. Now look, you've probably heard about these in elementary school. All right, this is nothing new here. Telephone, telegraph, light bulb. These are just 3 major examples of inventions that came about during the height of the Industrial Revolution. We had tons of inventions. But what you got to understand, and say if you had a paper and talking about technology and the changing technologies and the impact it had on society at different periods, and you don't know what period you're going to get, but let's just say you had this period. Certainly you would write about the telephone, the telegraph, the light bulb. You could write about other things, but you would also have to point out what they were, but what was the impact on society from maybe a political point of view, from say a cultural point of view. For instance, if you look at the telephone shaped how we communicated with each other. Before the telephone, you might send a telegraph if you could get to a telegraph, or you'd write long letters and it would take a while to hear back. The telephone made communication a lot more quicker and concise. And so it really brought the United States closer together. The light bulb, for instance, changed really, whole lifestyle. Because then you could start saying, hey, look, I can work later. I can do these kind of things and stuff. And it changed just the overall structure of life in cities, okay? And again, a lot of this would take more time out in the countryside, okay, in rural areas, so to speak. So that's the kind of stuff you need to look at, but you need to make sure you're reviewing all this, okay, and going over this and paying attention and staying up on your work. When I sign something, make sure you're doing it and turn it in. And if there is any problems or whatever, get hold of me, okay? You know I'll work with you. And the other thing about Zoom, I appreciate if you try to get on Zoom. I know sometimes it's a problem depending on where you are or whatever. If you try, that's great. And if you can't do it and stuff, you just go back and watch these little videos and then let me know what I went over and you'll be fine, okay? So finish strong. Let me know if you need anything. Take care.